Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Now this is part 2 of rebuilding the air compressor. I brought you in a little closer this time, and what we're going to be doing in this episode is we're going to be first of all cleaning up this old fiber washer or whatever the hell that is of the pump. In the last video we also had these spacers that were on there. I just pried them off before I started filming. So first order of business is removing these little studs. So in order to remove these studs, what you gotta do is you gotta back up two nuts that go on them, one against each other. What you do then is you back them one against each other, and then you just turn the bottom nut, and that should remove the stud. Yep. There we go, just like that. And afterwards you can just separate the nuts same way you put them up. Just like that. Okay, now that all the pins, all the studs have been removed, I need to start cleaning up this mess. This old... It seems to have been a fiber gasket or something like that, okay? But I'm not entirely 100% sure what that was. But what I do know is that all of it needs to go away because it's ripped to shreds. Now, what I also know is that I want to minimize what I'm putting inside the crankcase, like a piece just fell in. So I'll need to be removing those with tweezers. Now I've got a couple of tools to help me on my job. I've got this cheap scraper that I can use. I've also got a couple of razor blades, so hopefully this won't be too difficult. And as you can see, I'm trying to cut away from the opening, away from the entrance to the crankcase. Now, inevitably, some little bits are gonna end up inside. Once we're finished, we're gonna have a look at how bad the situation is and see if we need to... I really don't want to pull the crank out of the case because I'll try to show you a bit later, it is pinned in place. Let me just adjust the light a little bit. There you go. Okay, let's have a look. As you can see, right here is a pin that is cut on a diagonal like that, and there's another pin right here where you just can see the tip of it. And the problem with that is that I need to somehow hammer those pins out, but they seem to be made of a really malleable material, so they don't hammer well without bending. So it's going to be a real nightmare, and replacing them is going to be a nightmare as well. I've never seen something constructed this way, but I haven't pulled apart many old compressors before either. Sorry for kicking the tripod, by the way. The camera is very close to what I'm doing, and I'm trying to work around it. Okay, that's not bad. There was a couple places that it's still left. It looks like it was almost glued in place, but there are some bits of it that ended up inside the crankcase, so I'm gonna have to try to remove them with tweezers. There you go. Just using a little flashlight to see inside the crankcase to see what I'm doing. Okay, that's the other bit. This is where the oil filler spout and cap go onto. I've removed them off camera, and as it turns out, there's another gasket in there, so that needs to be removed as well. Same method. There we go. That cleaned up real nice. Now, of course, I need to do exactly the same thing on the other side of the filler cap. Now with this, I need to be a little bit more careful because this is brass and that seems to be cast iron, so this is much softer. So I need to make sure I don't put too many scratches into the thing. Okay, there we go. And that seems to be pretty clean. Ignore this. This is just a void in the casting. And now these copper spacers, seems that they go on top of there. They need to get the same treatment as well. So I'm probably going to skip this part and come back when they're all clean, so you don't have to sit through me scraping a bunch of copper, okay? Okay, well, that took much longer than I thought. So these are semi-clean. So what I have to start with now is the base of the cylinders themselves. And of course, there's two. Okay, that should be good enough. Now number two. It really helps when it comes off in one continuous piece. This one doesn't seem to be taking as long as the others. There we go. That'll do. Now let me clean up this workbench. Okay, so the next order of business is to clean everything up. Clean the old oil residue and dust and grime and whatnot. Now, do you see this discoloration in the center? These are the cylinder heads. This discoloration that, I believe, is an oil film just from the heat and the exposure. Same on the other side. In the last video you probably couldn't see it very well. I'll try to adjust the light a little bit. But you see how red the inside of this valve retainer cap is. And that is also an oil film inside. This thing has got stuff caked on the inside. So let me get started with that. And the way I'm going to do this is quite simple. It's just a rag and some white spirit. And that should get rid of most grease and oil. And if that doesn't work, I'm gonna step it up to acetone and try to get rid of it with that. Okay, the discoloration is still there, but the oil film seems to have gone, so I'll call that a success. Now I need to look into cleaning these things up. Okay, it looks like that white spirit is not doing the trick as I expected, so I'm using acetone instead. And acetone's removing this much better. Okay, acetone did a much better job of cleaning it up. This one, not so much. but that I presume that could be discoloration because of the heat. But it's removing the oil really well. Okay, so now most of the parts have been cleaned up. What I've got to do is I've got to take these valves and give them a good, well, give them a lapping to make sure that they are smooth and to get rid of any excess dirt and unevenness on top of them. Now I believe they are all the same. Yeah, yes, they're all the same. They're all the same size, so it shouldn't matter which valve I put where. Okay, so what I've got here is a piece of MDF. MDF, as you probably know, is very smooth and very uniform, so I'll use it as a reference surface. And I've got some sandpaper. I've got 400 grit, 1000 grit, and 2000 grit. And all I'm going to do, I don't want to take a lot of material off, therefore I'm using a very fine sandpaper. I just want to clean them up and take off any burrs or ridges or anything that it may be. And for lubrication, I'm just going to use WD-40. So that's as advanced as it gets. Just there we go, and take a valve and just lightly grind both sides. But that, what I did was, because of just the valve on its own is a bit difficult to hold it whilst I'm sanding it, I just snapped it on a flashlight that just happens to have a magnet on top of it, and I use it as a little handle because that's a bit easier. I've had a little brainwave and I've taken the rest of the flashlight off, so it's even easier to hold, so I don't have the whole thing sticking up trying to tip the whole thing over. That's cleaning up very nice. Like I said, I don't want to remove a lot of material. All I'm trying to do is just clean them up a little bit. And I'll just move up through the grids and I'll get back to you when I'm on the last one. Okay, so I've cleaned them up. They have cleaned up quite nicely. There we go. And on the other sides of some of them, as you can see, there's sort of a nib worn in. I believe that's where the springs ride on, well, at least used to ride on, and they sort of worn in this wear pattern, but not much I can do about that. If I was to sand it as much as to get rid of all of it, I would end up with a very, very thin valve, which is just something I don't want. So I've just cleaned them up, and that should be good enough to go. So what these guys are, they are the intake valve retainers, and this surface right here, the small circle on the inside, that's where the valves seal against. Now what I want to make sure is that they seal properly and don't leak, so I'm going to lap these as well. I'm taking this straight to 2000 grit because I want them to be very, very smooth, and because it's brass, it's quite soft, so I don't want to take too much material off. And yeah, they're cleaning up quite fast and quite nicely. Okay, there we go. They've cleaned up much better now, and hopefully they should seal now. What I will try to do is I'll try to assemble the heads of the pistons now, and possibly even attach them to the cylinders and see if the valves are good before I put the rest of the compressor together. Okay, let's have a look. So that's one of the pistons I've got. Still has some oil in it. And what it turns out, actually this is quite cleverly designed. As you can see, there's a chamfer here at the edge of the cylinder. So you don't really need a piston ring compressor to put them back in. Just need a little bit of effort, and they tend to snap in place themselves. Let's have a look, hang on. There we go. Okay, so now with the piston in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cap the exhaust and see if the air wants to leak out. If it does tend to leak out, we're back to square one. And so it does. That's pretty pants. Okay, so we're back. I did some faffing about off the camera. Looks like I've got them pretty much running. They still leak a tiny bit, but in both of them, once I put my thumbs right here, my fingers here to close them, I can feel quite a lot of pressure being generated. So hopefully that's going to be good enough. I mean, in reality, what I'm hoping is that the piston inside is moving much faster, and what I'm hoping for is that it will seal it better, or it will not allow as much air to leak out just because of the speed of the whole process. So that's fine. What I've got to do next is I have to try to reassemble the crankcase and everything that goes over there. Okay, so what I'll be doing now is I'll be reattaching the pistons to where they belong, and sort of dry assembling everything. I mean, these will be loose for the time being. There's not going to be any silicone or any sealant on them. I've decided I'm going to use silicone here because it's going to be easier, and I'm going to turn it by hand with very little oil inside, just as a dry run to see how everything works, and hopefully everything does work, but we'll find out. Okay, so the piston pin retainer clips are back on. I'll screw the studs in here so the copper spacer doesn't move around on me. I don't believe every time there's no other way to stop, sorry. Okay, so let's try putting the cylinders back on. Okay, so now I just need to fasten it down and see close. Okay, now the eagle-eyed of you will notice that I only have 2 screws instead of that, so that's true. I have 2 screws on a diagonal on each cylinder just to hold it in place. Like I said, this is just a dry run, so let's see. Okay, this is weird. Okay, so I'm still having a little bit of a leak on the intake valves over here, but a lot less than I used to, so we're gonna try to roll with that. But the problem I have is this. I can't turn the crankcase around, and it looks like the pistons are hitting the top of the cylinder heads. probably that gasket that was over there that I scraped off provided the vital sort of, it raised the cylinders a vital amount that the pistons would clear the top of the cylinders. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'll take off the tops of the heads and see if that is the case, and I'll take the heads off and see if the piston is going past where it's supposed to be. Okay, it looks like that's exactly what's happening. I'm not sure if you can see this, but yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. The piston is rising a little bit too much. It's a very small amount though, so I need to measure this and figure out how much it needs to go up by. Okay, it seems to be 15 or 16 thousandths of an inch, or about 0.4 of a millimeter if I'm correct. Okay, so we hit a snag. I think this is a good ending point for this particular video, and we will see if we can work this out. I'll probably order some gasket material to put under there, so now at least I know how thick of a gasket material I want. It's about 0.4, 0.5 of a millimeter. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.